You are listening to Arts on the Air, a bi-weekly-ish interview show dedicated to Savannah, Georgia's artists, musicians, and authors. Each episode will feature a guest in conversation about their philosophy, practice, and current projects, as well as their thoughts on the state of the arts in our community of Savannah. Our theme music is a clip of Summer Nights by the Eric Jones Trio. It's provided by our friend Mark Chesanow, who plays with the Eric Jones Trio. Hey everyone, welcome to Arts on the Air. This is Tamara Garvey, and I'm here with Jason Bible today. Welcome, Jason.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for being here with me. So I'm going to read a little bio. Jason is a musician. He's an Americana and rock singer, songwriter, and instrumentalist, and you were born in Fort Worth, Texas. Yeah. Who did you listen to in high school growing up? Who were your big fans?
I started out really got into Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
And that's about mostly what I listened to until, maybe that's about it. I still, like Bob Dylan and Woody Guthrie's was my listening palette for probably 3 years. So I'd go to parties and put on like an early Dylan record. What are you doing? He's killed the party.
Yeah.
I didn't
You're like,
know.
This is the kind of party I want.
And then I finally traced back, like, and listened to Nirvana and Green Day and things like that were huge in 91 to 95. I graduated in 95.
Okay. You were not too far. I graduated high school in 97.
Okay.
So,
back in the days of the pager and...
I totally wanted to talk to you about Nirvana later, so I love that you brought that up. But were you already thinking that you wanted to be a performing musician, or were you just into it listening?
I got a guitar in 90. And there was a guy, Les Clark, that would teach lessons, come to your house for $40 and for an hour. And he happened to know every early Bob Dylan song, from like a Rolling Stone, previous, all the folk stuff. He already kind of had heard it and knew it, and that was a good thing to meet him.
Yeah, I was so lucky for you.
He taught me Times Are Changing, and that was the first song, I guess a year later, I played in a talent show in Grapevine. I played Times Are Changing, guitar, harmonica, and then that was pretty much, I was like, this is what I want to do.
You were playing guitar and harmonica, you said?
Yeah.
And you were singing too?
Mm-hmm.
Did you
Very terribly.
Yeah, did you feel comfortable singing from the beginning?
I didn't know what I was doing. I just was like mimicking Woody Guthrie and Bob Dylan. It was real mid-pubescent, nasally. I have a video of that performance somewhere.
Oh yeah?
And it's hilarious. But that started this whole thing. So I was 13, 14, I think then. So yeah.
So your first love was the guitar playing, and then you sort of like, you just kind of have to sing because that's just part of it.
I think the lyrics were more important to me than the music.
Yeah.
I was more gravitated more towards the story type songs and the meanings.
Yeah,
of
like a narrative kind of song.
And and the guitar was more like a way to, to augment that and kind of get out there. And
how so to learn Woody Guthrie and Bob Dylan, first off, how like technically challenging are they? Is that hard?
Back then it seemed very daunting.
Yeah.
Now I can hear stuff and kind of know what chords it might be, or where the capo is, or what harmonic, but I didn't know if you put a capo on here, then this is the right harmonica. That's how kind of musically illiterate I would say I was. So it was more like experiment and hear. And I took piano lessons when I was 13 or 14, and I broke my arm that summer. So I had to stop piano lessons. So but I didn't learn enough other than like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star or stuff like that to really know music, what notes were what. So it was kind of just Les would just write A, D, and it was real primitive kind of chord charts he would make me, and I'd work on that song for a week. He'd come back and kind of give me some pointers. And
that's cool. You're having these private tutorials.
Yeah, I mean, he taught a couple other friends of mine as well, and they would learn like Sweet Child of Mine, just the intro,
the more contemporary things,
and and they would they could play like the intro to Metallica or something, but that was it. So I was like I wanted to be able to sing and play something
the whole song
throughout, and it would be hours of. I had a little karaoke machine that had 2 cassette decks in it and 2 mic inputs and a big echo, so I would plug into that. That was my first studio. Was that thing, and I've got cassettes of songs I wrote for my girlfriend's bird that passed away.
Oh my gosh,
rough.
Your earliest work.
Rough masters from back then.
It's really funny you still have that around somewhere.
Yeah, my dad gave me a cooler. It was smart to put them in a cooler actually, but of just old cassettes and VHS tapes. I don't even have a VHS player, so those days are...
That's really,
Yeah.
So there's an archive of your work.
There's an archive that'll probably just be thrown in the ocean, or not in the ocean, but...
We're going to submit this to the Library of Congress at some point.
Well, I tried to do... I got the boom box that's over there, and I ran it into the interface, and I started listening to a 4-track probably 3 years ago. My wife was in the kitchen upstairs, the door was open. I was cranking this song, and after inputting 3 songs, but the problem with the early stuff was that it would be holding a G chord for way too long.
Yeah.
An E minor, way too long.
Not very interesting.
There was too much just chords, guitar strumming. I didn't know when to really kind of how to condense. And they were just excruciating to listen back to. And she was like, "Yeah, I don't know if you want to load, because I was thinking about doing just a iTunes, just put up 80 songs a day or so. I was like, I don't know if these are really, these might be just archival materials, but it's wild how you just start figuring it out, whatever you're doing, slowly.
It is kind of inspiring to go back to the really early things, just to take stock of how rudimentary things are when you start. That is kind of amazing. Were you in a band in high school at all then?
Well, I let's see. I still had a friend, Gary Reisinger. He passed away probably 4 months ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And he lived in he had the garage band, and had a big banner, and it said the Garage Band, Colleyville, Texas, and he had more Jimmy Buffett parrot stuff than you could, neon lights, and so we had this garage there, and I met him when I was 17, and I would go over there and we would play Buddy Holly songs, just drums and guitar, and he would play drums, and then I'd try to play drums, and maybe another neighbor that played bass would come over. And we did some car shows and barbecues, and we would do Watchtower, Knock on Heaven's Door, and maybe an original. That was our set, was my part of playing in that band. Then then I met a drummer, and we did a 2-piece, John Sterick, which oddly enough he lives in San Bernardino Beach.
Oh yeah.
Now I need to get a hold of him, but he played drums with me. He was a jazz guy, and so he. We would record at the house, and from there, I still was really just more, the solo thing was more but we did a lot of gigs, duo, and then in Denton, I had a couple bands in Denton that were in various states of trying to get a record done.
Denton, Ohio?
Denton, Texas, which is northeast of Dallas-Fort Worth, so I lived up there for a while. It was a great music town. Great scene there, and
were you starting to think at this era that this is what you wanted to be doing?
Well, at that time it was if you didn't have a label, then independent label, whether it was that model where you start your own label was happening with certain people, and I guess I knew. I mean, I was. Back then, the coffeehouse boom was happening, right? So Hearst, Arlington, all these cities around Dallas-Fort Worth, there was always a coffee shop, mom and pop, coffee shop.
And that's perfect for kind of mellow singer-songwriter.
Yeah, right? And they would do, the first one was Cafe Bliss in Hearst, and I went in there with just my guitar and went in, and I was like, I'm gonna, it's cool if I play if you audition or whatever. And she's like, how about you just sit and play for the lunch crowd and we'll see how it goes, whatever. So she just I just sit on a stool and unplugged, and that was my home kind of base. And they had an upstairs, like stairs, and then the upstairs, they had a stage kind of area in the back and a pretty good.
Yeah. So you're like classic 90s coffee house.
Oh, it was the thing.
Yeah.
It was the thing. And it was awesome because there were poets, there were people, and Deep Ellum had the green room, which was very intense. I mean, you'd have people come up and act out like pros of being assaulted and
it was like performance art.
It was like Greenwich, if Greenwich Village could be in Deep Ellum or something like maybe that, because that was kind of that. Initially I was like, oh, I got to get up to New York to make it.
Oh, really? You were thinking that?
That was an initial idea, and then at that time you could make a pretty good living.
Really?
I remember Barnes and Nobles would pay me, and there was like 5 or 6 of them in the Grapevine, Dallas-Fort Worth area. You could, in the music department, they would just set up right there. It's like, what? And you set up like in front of, Smashing Pumpkins' new record thing, and just put a speaker out and face the front of the store.
And they would pay you?
They paid me $25.
All right.
And a gift certificate.
That's cool. This national chain that you could go into a local store and they would.
It used to be,
and
my schedule would be like Barnes and Noble here, and I would do these gigs, but I would take the $25 gift certificate and buy like a bookmark.
Yeah.
And then get like $23 back.
Oh, you could do that.
And then the tips might be like $30 to $50.
Yeah.
So it was like if I could pull in $100 a night, it was like, well, that seemed like a better than other jobs at that age that you could do. So that's so
interesting. So if they were willing to hire you like each one that frequently, then you could really do this circuit.
Yeah, there's some flyers we have of like, I would print out these, and it was just Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Barnes & Noble, like Cafe Bliss, Barnes & Noble.
Yeah. Well, it's really funny that they didn't actually pay you in cash. They paid you in a gift card, and you had to come up with this way to get around the system.
Right. And there were Borders books.
Yeah.
Was in Dallas. There was that one.
Yeah, I loved Borders.
That was a cool little gig, and I mean, a lot of times you would meet people through those gigs. They say, hey, can you come over and play my back porch Sunday at 4?
Yeah, if it's somebody browsing the music section anyway.
So a lot of those, I used to have like a little thing I'd put out by the tip jar for emails. An actual mailing list.
Yeah.
Right, back in that day. And people would put, a comment or something, and then I would log that in a little book and be like, gig in Arlington or something. And but it was a hustle. I mean, it still is. It's the same exact
you were working it
thing. It's like farm league hustle. It's kind of,
so
it's just every now and then you get in the maybe close to the majors or minors, but it's I like to play. I like to sit down and play for 3 or 4 hours, and I'm kind of conditioned to do that now. And a lot of times the things where you go out for 30 minutes and that's it, or 45 minutes and that's it, are just like they kind of, at this point, I'd rather just kind of settle in and kind of feel out the audience but I love those. Those are fun too. You just have to be very intentional
in that mindset
about like, okay, I have 30 minutes, just guitar, harmonica. I need to walk out, and how am I going to move through subject matter?
Yeah, like you pare it down to your best things. I guess.
The last gig like that was B.B. King's daughter and Stevie Ray's nephew.
Wow.
And it was at Tybee Post Theatre, and I had 30 minutes, and I did no pedals, no kickbox, and it was great to just go out with a couple harmonicas and know exactly what I was going. I don't think I did a set list, but I knew kind of the beginning, middle, and end of
what a cool gig. That's such an honor.
It was fun. I ended up in a limo with both of them.
Oh my God.
Driving around Tybee to find somewhere to eat.
Where did you go?
We went to Back River.
Okay, cool.
And I talked to Stevie Ray's nephew, Tyrone, about like everything.
Yeah.
Because I went to school at the Sound Lab, and Stevie recorded there, and Russell Whitaker owned it. And Russell, when I brought up Stevie to him in his office after I graduated, he got tears in his eyes. He got really intense about that because he felt like he was really a part of that early, or before he got massive. But
it
was neat.
Yeah. I was going to ask you actually if there's like philosophically or the way that you would approach it differences to being the opener for other bands as opposed to being the headliner. Is there like a different goal or a different way you go about it?
The Trainwrecks goal was always to leave like sawdust on the stage. It's like to leave, and it makes the headliner, you kind of challenge the headliner if you can even attempt to.
Okay.
But
like you want to give them a run for their money.
Well, in some points, like that thing at Tybee Post, last thing was more. Everything was so different from folk to blues, and then back to kind of gospel and R&B. But there have been times where we've had people open for us, and it's like, oh my God, we've got to pull out all the stops.
Oh.
And then, there's been times where we've opened for people that are national, international acts, and they come out and go like, there's, because this is our hometown, and we would do stuff like that. And sometimes it was a little harder for the headliner to get the energy across.
That's funny, yeah.
And that was kind of our main.
That must be really flattering when the headliner comes out and they're like really impressed by what you did.
Yeah, I mean, I opened for Paleface one time at Wormhole, and I had been to a funeral for Walter Harris. He passed away. It's been 5 years. And he used to play out on the river, and he was like an uncle to me. And he got to know Jack when he was little, and he would, when I was down or doubting stuff, he would encourage me. It's that kind of person, really encouraging. He would play down at the river. He was kind of like Otis Redding meets Richie Havens in the open.
That sounds
tune
amazing.
With his thumb over the guitar, and I mean, he was incredible. And we did a record, but he I forgot what I was even talking about.
It was about being the opener.
Yeah, when he passed away, I left the funeral. I loaded in. I set up, and it was an emotional set. And the pale-faced guy, he looked at me, he's like, man, are you local? Like, because it was just, I mean, it was maybe two. And I played the song I wrote for him at the funeral.
Yeah.
And still had the paper, like, on the floor. So I was, grief is a powerful artistic thing, whether it's like painting or music. It's definitely painful, but it's a good way to use that experience to process it. Write a
intense
song.
Experience for the audience, to be there.
Yeah.
Without you, now I'm living every day without you. And I know I was lucky to spend any time at all with you. One day we'll figure out what to do. Without you, it hurts me just to feel okay without
Did you, not to change tax too much, but did you ever make it to New York the way you thought?
I made it to Lake Hopatcong, New Jersey.
Okay.
And I've been to New York, but I've never played officially in New York proper, ever.
So how did you, when and how did you end up in Savannah?
I was living in Denton, and I had hot checks. Back then, if you bounced a check, it was like $35 or $25 fee, and then 2 or 3 would happen, and it's like you're negative. Again, a friend of mine, Jack, was a horn player in a band. He passed away. I got a little bit out of control with trying to plan and get a keg to the house for the after party funeral, and I had roommates at the time. Anyway, it was. I would say I left Denton in a blaze of glory. I think
you can't
just
go back
recently,
to Denton.
I finally got one of the checks had finally gotten cleared up, in the whatever happened with the cord and something.
Wow, from decades ago.
I think it was. I think it came out to my parents' house or something that was like, this has officially been.
Yeah. So you can finally show your face in that town again.
Well, I haven't been back since, so it's changed a lot there.
Yeah.
Like Rick's place burned down. The music scene there is definitely different. But back then it was awesome. I mean, it was incredible. There were bands that were getting signed out of Denton. It was kind of like the Austin.
Oh.
If you could make it in Denton, then Austin was where you went to get signed.
Yeah.
South by Southwest or whatever.
Huh.
And that was the time where like you had to have a label, you had to be on the road all the time. And now it's maybe coming back to that a little more, where people are more independent doing themselves. And I've talked to people that do everything themselves, like the art, the music, the recording, the tour logistics, the management, the band,
like all the administration.
I mean, everything. And they're paying like close to $200 a year to make 25 or whatever, or 30, I mean, but they're doing theaters, and that's awesome. But I'm very specific, and I can book and go play and come home. But I like being close to home. My son's 12, and when he's 18 or whatever, we were talking about it the other day, like if he still wants to play music, then maybe sell everything and get a Winnebago.
Take your show on the road.
Yeah, and just kind of book it as you go, kind of thing.
So how did you? Okay, so you were passing bad checks in Texas, and you had to get out of there. How did you come to Savannah?
I made it out of Texas. I drove out here on Valentine's Day, 2001.
Did you know anyone here, or?
My folks lived in Bloomingdale.
Okay.
So I came out here to the goal was to just kind of regroup.
Yeah.
And I walked down the river with my suit and my railroad boots. I worked for the railroad, and with my briefcase of resumes and my guitar, and I went into every place on the river.
Wow.
And back then, everywhere was having music.
Yeah.
And there's still
was
a lot
like
of music
Bio
down
Cafe.
there was like Huey's.
Kevin Barry's.
Greg Williams just passed away. He was one of the first people I met. I walked by and I looked in there and I was like, oh man, that's a cool gig. And he was playing all along the Watchtower, like Michael Hedges style and drop tuning. And I struck up a friendship with him early on, and we were both Dylan fanatics, and so was Jim Reed. And so Greg and Steve Andrews was in town. He was a promoter, whatever, and he would throw me a opening slot somewhere, and be last minute. Like Edwin McCain was that. He called me the day of. It's like, I'm giving you $75. Edwin McCain.
Wow.
45-minute set. It ended up being an hour and a half set.
Where do you remember where that was?
It was at Deja Groove, which is like.
I remember that place.
Yeah, okay, you do? Okay, yeah.
My
They
gosh.
turned it into a venue, and I thought it was like the whole entire audience were women. I was like, Edwin McCain's he's got a good following.
Yeah.
And he stayed on the bus for a while to kind of let people file in more. And they were like, so that was a really good one.
That's so funny. So you were like just pounding the pavement, going from bar to bar to be like,
yeah,
I'm here.
I finally got sober enough to get. I was opening for karaoke at Bay Street Blues.
Oh my gosh.
With Bonnie, and Bonnie was like my downtown mother. She would like give me nachos and beer.
I love that place is still there.
I know, and it is. I don't know if I can go back. It had a cool little stage, and from my perspective, I walked in and I was like, this is a gig, So she would let me open for karaoke. I think she paid me $50 and then beer.
I was, it's weird. When I first moved to Savannah, it was 2005, and I went there a bit. The girl who I lived with liked it there, and then I hadn't been in ages. And then maybe like a year ago, I went with friends, and they still are doing karaoke.
Yeah, is Scotty with the mullet still there?
Bonnie was there, but I don't know Scotty.
Well,
but
I need to go
amazing.
say hi to her sometime.
But yeah, they was still like jumping for karaoke.
I was in there. That was like my downtown home of playing, and then from there I went down to I got the gig at it's a restaurant and a bar, Bernie's. That's my grandfather's name.
Oh yeah, Bernie's.
Bernie's, yeah. So they had that little stage in there, and I would play in there. And yeah, that was like $75, and you got free drinks.
And what year was that?
That was like 2002, probably.
So that's like a good amount of money, right?
Back then, yeah. I mean, if you could string enough of them together, and the City Market was hopping back then.
And were you playing your own songs, or were you doing like Dylan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually a mixture of Dylan, Petty, Cash, Hank Williams.
Yeah.
Some Ben Harper, so some old U2 stuff.
What were the audiences like?
Military, a lot of military tourists.
Yeah.
And the best gig I got early was it was called Kids Wet and Wild. It's where the girls dance in the bar. Upstairs.
Okay.
Well, downstairs, Kit had this the bar downstairs, and so there was the upstairs bar with all the hoopla going on, and then pretty much mostly soldiers would come in and hang out, and we would just get inebriated.
Were people listening, or were they like wild and loud, and you were trying to sing
There were no
over them?
phones, so there were no phones. There weren't many TVs like there are. Maybe there's a few TVs.
I just don't know if it's like a quiet environment and people are listening to you sing, or
the
if
best
you're
thing about that gig
trying to
was
sing
she
over it.
hired me 6 days a week, and I could leave my PA, which was I don't normally do things where they're every week, or what I try not to do because I get burned out. But back then it was just $150 a night, and it was down on the river and whatever. And I could leave my PA, and I could walk from where I was living, and it was the perfect gig until I really got into to Jägermeister and various kind of, because back then it was like inciting mass drinking was my kind of job, was like, to really. Oh,
you're trying to like just make money for the bar.
You're like kind of a glorified liquor salesman. Like if people are drinking if you're playing like Townes Van Zandt Sad Bastard stuff, then people are going to kind of just either get too sad and leave, or just not. So that worked. That side of it, I hadn't really done that in Texas, where you get people riled up, and that was kind of the crescendo, and then I'd be too hammered to probably get through it.
You were trying to get everybody like ginned up drinking, and then you were drinking too.
I was drinking too, and I was buying shots for people, and and that was up until about 09, 010. I started
that's a long time.
And Trainwrecks started and all that, and there was another band before them.
Were you, when you would perform, did you get stage fright at all ever?
I always do a pacing thing where I've kind of got to take a minute. Jeremy from Trainwrecks calls it thumbing the saw blade, from the Johnny Cash movie, where he's back there behind the prison in the shop, and he's like thumbing this saw blade. So Jeremy, he'd be like, we'd be on the road, and he'd be like, man, he's thumbing the saw blade. I'm like, just give me a minute, just to kind
that's your thing, to like get centered.
And it's like they make fun of it in the Dewey Cox movie, where it's like, Dewey's got to think about his whole life before every show, and that's kind of a reflective thing, especially if it's a bigger show. You want to be very focused, I guess, and just kind of not just. But the drinking would kind of make that go away.
Did you? Yeah, some of it is coping.
Kind of block the channel of what's happening.
So you're performing so much those early days in Savannah. Was it like, did pretty quickly you just got more accustomed to the singing and less self-conscious about it, kind of thing? And like, where you come up with your voice?
I went back to Texas in 01 to see the Elevation tour from my U2. And I had tickets before I left, and I went back, and I had, I think, $200, and I went to a studio I'd been recording at before in this guy's backyard. It's called Free Spirit Studio, and it was all purple foam and like Marilyn Monroe photos and all black and white photography, and he had every instrument you could imagine. And I went in there, and I said I'd done 2 EPs with him, cassettes, and I talked to Ray, and I said, man, this is how much money I've got. Can you roll tape? I've got 14 songs. I want to record them. And so I went back and recorded that, and I've waited to have 300 CDs burned. So when I got back to Savannah, that's when I had something on CD, which was like, oh my God, I have a CD.
So professional.
With, like a print, the text and the song titles, and that gave me a vehicle to kind of... to get more bookings and the city market thing, maybe, and to kind of sober up a little bit and kind of
like that turned it up a notch.
Get on.
Felt like.
Just I felt a little more professional. I had something to sell at shows. And that were.
Isn't that? I mean, that's such a huge part of it, right? It's not just isn't the merch is a big part of it, money wise.
Yeah, I mean, I'll put out vinyl nowadays, and recently, and people buy them now and then. Like they'll just buy it kind of blind. Like, which one do you recommend? And I'll recommend something. But it's moved slower. Used to move some CDs.
But that era with the CDs, I'm sure.
And then when I ran out of those 300, I had the burner and the labels, and I'd print like some terrible art, you know, with the name and songs, and it's come a long way with all that. I think I answered the question about the.
I was curious in that era. So when you were new to Savannah, how did you meet lots of other musician friends? Were you guys all hanging out and going to each other's gigs? Like, what were you visit a real scene of musicians that you hung out with?
There was definitely a lot of people would come out to your gig. After it was like Savannah Blues back in those days. You'd maybe meet people after the gigs. And there's always been a good music scene here whereas a lot of major markets, it's so competitive that like you open for this band, you don't stay for their show because you've got to pull your fans from the venue, so you till more. Like place the Smithsonian Bar in Atlanta, they till. Like, who are you here to see? Okay. And if you've got...
It's very cutthroat.
And the Trainwrecks, even, we could barely till, like, on a Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. I mean, 50, 60 people. It was like, yes! Like, maybe we'll get a Thursday at, at opening for somebody. But
so it's very, like, cataloged how many people you specifically could bring in there.
I ran into that in Athens. I played DT's downstairs. It's like an old stone kind of enclosed building, a subterranean kind of deal. And I played there, and I walked in to get there, and it was packed. I was like, this is going to be great. I'm so glad I drove all the way here. The opener went on, was not very good, and all the whole frat left with him. There was one girl in there, and I think I broke 2 strings in like 10 minutes. It was just like,
you were on like a downward spiral.
Yeah, I was like, it's like, so a lot of those markets like that. Yeah, I know.
Is that like your worst? Is that the story of your worst gig, basically?
Or
could it be worse? Could it be worse than playing for one person?
The worst gig?
I guess playing for 0 people.
Well, I think I'm noticing it more now where, okay, you have 12 TVs. You've got people on phones. They're not there to see music. They're just kind of like a background thing. And I've gotten to where I just wall off completely and get the music therapy I need to get out of it. But when people cue in and I can tell they're listening, even if it's like half an hour of the night and you hold a couple tables or 10 or the whole place, it's that thing that it's keeping that going is good practice.
You just focus on them.
It's good practice for when you get to said theater or opening or whatever headlining. Then you're ready to leave the farm leagues for a night, and kind of this is
for people who are really there for the music.
There's a green room and cheese trays, it's like yes. But
I had other plans, and I hold on to the memory. Those times I made you smile, but I can't hold on to nothing. That's nothing after a while.
The older I'm getting, I think the smoke and mirrors of the music business has kind of worn off to where I don't really expect like some guy to knock on my door or come to a gig and be like, you should be opening for so-and-so. Yeah. I know so-and-so who's going to make it happen, because I've heard that enough to where and I've had people say, like, why are you here, man? Like, what are you doing here on Wednesday night? And it's like, I'm playing, It's like...
Isn't that exactly like a line from Piano Man?
It's that verse, that whole verse. It's boy, what are you doing here?
Can you talk about how you and the Trainwrecks got together?
I was at Bernie's, and Eric was living in Athens, and he came in there with his bass.
Oh, but give the last names too, just in case
Eric
don't.
Dunn.
Okay.
Yeah, he was the original Trainwrecks bass player, and he came in there, and he was from here, and he said, I'm ready to play with you, man. Like whenever he'd gone to Athens and played in all kinds of bands, and got really good at the bass in like no time, and we started playing duo stuff, and then we added Marcus at some point, and we were playing like the pool by Hotel Tybee. It used to be called Ocean Plaza, we'd play the Pool from 2 to 5.
Wow.
Play somewhere from 6 to 9 or 6 to 10. Haul ass to like Britannia. We played there every Wednesday for a long time, and then we would do a 10 to 10:30 to 2,
Wow.
2:30 to maybe 3. We would do that. We did that for the first year.
And were you guys hanging out and writing songs together?
We were just playing to make money. I mean, we were playing to make money and get free tabs, honestly.
Well, that's cool to find other people who are like wanting that as well, like that lifestyle, that kind of pace of it, and can like hang and do that.
Yeah.
It's probably hard to find somebody whose life exactly matches up, right, and can do that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be fully committed to the music, even on that level, even though you're not putting 200 miles in between each gig. Everybody's got to show up. Everybody's got to be coherent, at least till 1, and then play it like it's your last show, you know. And then that was kind of, so you could do that in Savannah. You can still in Savannah, but you know, do 3 or 4 places on Tybee, 3 or 4 places here. Then nobody's like, you can't, if you played Starland, you're not allowed to play Victory North because it's within this vicinity, and your contract says you can't cross promote, you know. So Savannah, that doesn't exist. Like the Warehouse on Wednesdays, I meet people from all over the world, and I don't have to go to Boston coffee shop to meet the family from Boston that bought a record or something. So that works. As in, Savannah's such a tourist town, you know. Tybee is too. I mean, it's really gotten there's a lot of Airbnbs out there.
So you guys, for a while, you were like cobbling together many gigs and doing it. Yeah, we were doing that, and we'd go out to my folks' house and we cut an EP of like Ghost of Tom Joad. She Was the One. Whiskey Ain't My Friend No More was like we thought was a hit. And then like Texas Bound, I think. And then Marcus put a song on there called Sometimes You're Wrong, which that was a great song. And that EP was done, and then we made Whiskey and War. Started that in 2005. How did it go with, if you're used to just writing songs just by yourself, and now suddenly you're with people, what is that like? It was helpful. Yeah, it was really helpful, because I'd have like bits and pieces, like the verse and the chorus, and Georgia Kyle helped me a lot with the first record. Like he's like, I mean, you need an intro. I'm like, well, we just want to cut the fat, get right to the verse. But the concept with the band, I guess we didn't know it, but it was the freight train beat as fast as you can play it, and just kind of rave ups, you know, like a Buddy Holly idea, where you just play a 2-minute song, and it's you know. And it's fast, and that's like catchy. Green Day style. Yeah. Me and Jack have been playing a lot of their stuff, and it's exhausting 2 minutes. Though. Yeah. It's not like a boring 2 minutes. So so Jack's your son. So we'll say that. Yeah. We've learned to. Yeah, Green Day is like short and intense. Like Walking Contradiction and Burnout. So Buddy Holly would be like that style too, just short and intense. Those songs were all so short, and you weren't allowed to put some over 3 minutes on the radio. It was like, whoa, now you're getting a little wordy with that third verse. That's funny to think about that. Like back then, you wouldn't be expected to like have the listener have a long attention span and listen to a long song, because I feel like everybody talks about like nowadays is where we have such short attention spans. So it's funny that back then actually that was a huge thing. Sit down and listen to Desolation Row by Bob Dylan, which is I think 11 minutes. To sit and listen to that whole song is a journey. I mean, it's not. But I love both of those kind of worlds where. And like Desert Gunfire was a song that I was really close to on Whiskey and War, where I had most of the story, and then Dave helped me finish it in a way that was smarter and more concise. So I would just free write and then consolidate all. Sorry, who is Dave? Dave Williams. Okay. I've been writing with Dave since 2002, 2003. I played the Music Grill on Duran, which is now like a breakfast place or something. Mm-hmm. And I walked in there. I opened for Sister Hazel. I liked that. I didn't get to stay because I had another gig, but I played this song called In the Shade off Whiskey and War, and In the Shade was open tuning. It was the first one like that I'd written. And then Dave was in a hoodie reading Helter Skelter, and he's working the door, and
and I walk past him just kind of like, is this guy gonna knife me? And he's
This
like,
is okay.
he's in the nicest voice. Dave's like, man, that In the Shade song, that's one of the best. I think he said that's the best song I've ever heard. I was like, wow. So we struck up a friendship and started. Our influences were very similar.
Yeah.
The same kind of wheelhouse of early Dylan. He knew all that stuff. So if I reference like, no, let's make it more, like this, then he would know exactly what I was talking
you have like
about.
a shorthand.
And we
to
never
talk
write in
about.
the same room together. Rarely.
Really?
We have like twice, 2 or 3 times.
You do it separately and then you come together?
He's in Athens. He's a public defender in Athens. So we bounce ideas back and forth, and that's how we've done the 2 books, Anika and Anada. And those are there's a song per chapter.
Okay. Is this a physical book people can buy separately from
Yes.
album? Okay.
Yes. The Anika book, I believe, is still in stock. The Anada is in a box in the garage. There's a lot of them
So
left.
someone can contact you to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those 2, one was done with everybody here, and then pandemic happened, and I had to do it remotely. With basically me and Kyle were in here. George Kyle Shiver. He's been around town forever. He's a really good songwriter.
What are the titles of the books? What do those mean?
Anika is impermanence. It's a Buddhist principle. Anatta is non-existence of self. And then dukkha, which is suffering, is the 3rd tenet of Buddhism. And that's the one we're doing now. And we're a couple chapters in, 2 rough demos in.
Yeah.
And it's been 3 years trying to get that. Dave's got 2 boys, and it's been a little much to try to have the time to really, email and talk about the story and where we want to go with it. But it'll be about suffering based on that, and the principle of opioid addiction, and trying to get clean, and in the same world as the other 2 books. But the music for this record, I want to try to make like my Tom Petty Wildflowers. I want to get like up to Athens and hire somebody to like help with string arrangements, and do something with the 3rd one that's like really swing for the parking lot, That's kind of our goal with it.
So in those first 2 albums you did, like the songs that you write as well, there's a theme going through everything.
Yeah. There's Anika, there's 2 videos for that. There's Remember to Be Kind, and then there's Anika.
And we can drop these songs in now too.
Yeah, those two videos, and Anna Chandler sang on it.
One day we will die here, and no one will remember. But oh, how I loved you, and that was forever.
Yeah, that was done with everybody in the room, and we cut ATV. And the song, what's weird about the book and the song titles don't match at all.
Okay.
Like the chapter 5 is the story is talking about an ATV, so that's kind of the highlight of the chapter. But the song, you would think to call it, something other than. So I get confused about that sometimes. So we're doing the 3rd one, and I want to make it after those last 2, even though the title's Suffering, and kind of, we've joked around about it, making like a comedy record, or making it a little lighter, like power pop, like heavy guitars,
like an ironic title.
Super melodic, versus maybe a little more Wilco, Radiohead, Nirvana world on some of the stuff, and less of where I'm coming from, like less of the folk and acoustic stuff.
So that like the lyrics from it would be kind of serious and heavy, but the sound of the music would be a little lighter.
Yeah, kind of juxtapose those 2. Because Anika, I played the piano on that song. I think I did 8 takes of that, and I think I kept the 3rd or 4th one, or maybe the 1st one. Because sometimes but Tom Petty would say, at the 3rd take, you just abandon and you'd write
Really?
something else. And he would write songs while the band was like trying to work on the fourth take, and he's like, here's swinging, let's do this one. And so the way you can move in the studio is a whole different thing, where you start playing at a chart rather than just playing it, and that's when you kind of, but that song I think is I'm the most proud of.
But you could write something that quickly, like if you're in the studio and then suddenly you feel like you need to pivot, you can just write it then.
Just completely, throw in the distortion pedal and play.
There's something about the vibe in the studio that you're able to just do that.
Yeah, it's kind of, they talk about the lightning in the bottle you're trying to capture. It's not, to me, as much about the perfection of it. It's about, does it have feeling, and can you pull it off live?
Yeah.
How does it translate? And that song, I think, it definitely does that. I don't play it very often because it's like ends with one day we will die here and no one will remember, but oh how I loved you, and that was forever. And it's just gut wrenching. Like if you're playing a gig where you're not getting a lot of energy coming at the music and people paying attention. You want to save those types of songs for like coffeehouse or listening room where everybody's right there with you, to really pull this.
Yeah, if it's like a party scene, you don't want to.
Oh no,
bring it down.
We don't. Me and Dave don't write anything close to that kind of idea. I don't know why.
Well, it's cool to hear you got back to the piano eventually, because you said you started out playing and then you broke your arm and you had to stop.
Yeah. Well, I bought that piano from a friend, Will Griffith, in town. He plays in a band, Toxic Oscar, and that's his piano. So it's got some history. I think. I think every instrument has, especially if they're used and older, they tend to have some kind of.
Like something interesting happened.
I use the word mojo
to it before.
Yeah, there's some.
Yeah.
Like I've got some guitars that were given to me by Walter. One of them's a black classical guitar, and I'd like to think that when you play it, maybe he pays a visit here and there.
Yeah. You're left-handed, right?
Yes.
Is it hard to find left-handed guitars?
It is. It is a challenge. Yeah. Yeah, you go in, we were just in Charlotte, and you go into a Guitar Center, for instance, and me and Jack are looking around. There's not a whole place. There was not one left-handed guitar. It's like, Jack, you ready to go? He's like, but this one's really cool. I'm like, what? There's a place called Jerry's Left-Handed Guitars in Sarasota, Florida, and it's a building about maybe 3 times the size of this room.
Yeah.
And it's all left-handed guitars.
So funny. So all the left-handed weirdos make a pilgrimage there.
Yes, and they can't. It's a horse farm. So what happened with Jerry is he got injured in a woodworking accident, had to learn how to play left-handed. Called Gretsch, said I want this particular Gretsch. And they said, well, if you want that one, you have to order 12 for us to make them left-handed. Wow. So he said, okay, screw y'all. I'll take 12. So he ordered 12 of these, 12, and so he started.
So he opened a store, basically.
Yeah, and there's Southpaw Guitars in Houston, which is overwhelming. They've got like the Jeff Tweedy Martin, they've got the Eric Clapton Martin, they've got the John Mayer Martin, all left-handed. Okay. But Jerry's down in Sarasota. He looks just like the Will Ferrell character from Eastbound and Down, Ashley Schaefer, right? The white hair. So we're on tour, and I was like hell-bent on getting to Sarasota, and we zigzagged around Florida, and we got close enough. St. Pete, maybe. We drove. We surprised him. I didn't know you had to make an appointment or something, so we go to this horse farm. I'm like, where's the guitar store, Can't be out here. And we stop, and out walks that character. And we had to lay down in the car from just laughing. I was like, oh my God, that's...
Yeah.
So...
It was a real experience.
I mean, I had to lean over the railing and walk outside because there were so many left-handed guitars. It was overwhelming. I was like, there's a Duesenberg.
Yeah, like you never experienced.
I mean, there's the Mike Campbell, Tom Petty
options.
Duesenberg model, left-handed.
Yeah.
So most of the stuff I find online and either used or, I finally stopped purchasing. I think I have enough tools of what I need to make records, I think. So
did you? Okay,
that's a long subject. That's opening a bad can of worms.
That's so funny. So for the Trainwrecks, you guys, for years, you guys were together and you were recording and you were performing all around town up until basically the pandemic, right? Like years and years you guys were together.
Yeah, we still kept at it when we could.
Yeah.
And then Stu's father-in-law passed away, and he moved to Pensacola. And at that point, I had talked to Kevin Rose, I talked to Andrew Savannah, I talked to a couple of different people, and they were like pretty much willing, you know, to play or to fill in, or to ask me, you know, if you need a guitar player. And at that point, I decided I'm going to close the website down. I'm just going to step back. Because honestly, it after the fourth record and seeing how streaming was kind of happening you know, we did 45s for that release and everything, and it was like we didn't sell any the night of the release. And it was just like, ouch.
Yeah.
You know, we got 2,000 of these things, and now if you want one, I mean, I have quite a few of those if you've got a turntable. But there's a thing that you know, we had a lot of fun, and we kept going, you know, and in I guess 17 years. Would it be set?
Yeah, that's that's amazing for a band to.
Well, we only changed
like
drummers twice, and we only changed official bass players once.
Are drummers the most problematic?
Oh well, everything moves a little differently.
Are they always acting up?
Everybody's got their own seasoning.
Yeah.
So
I'm just wondering if they're always acting up, you have to replace them, and
well,
are they the wild ones?
Things with legalities can pull people out of bands, where it's almost kind of just an unspoken thing, like you can't do 20 shows a month and travel if need be whenever and that's always kind of been the foundation of it, is like, well, other things can be happening to make money, but if I call somebody and say, hey, we've got Waycross so it got to the point where doing the booking and the website and all the merch and doing all that got really, well, you know what, I'm gonna go back to solo for a minute and see how it goes, and it's been good. And I'm just kind of like Dave told me after the second record, Anado, he said to me on the phone, he said, Jason, it's okay to rest on your laurels a little bit. It's okay to sit back and just like raise jack, just play locally.
Also, that's
okay. And I was like, I thought to myself, I cannot believe I've been told that.
Yeah.
And I wish he'd never told me that on one side, but on the other side, that drive is so much of it.
Well, it's so many years of like all of you have to align on your vision and getting along together and being able to travel and like the same level of commitment. That's a lot to match up on. And so now it's nice where it's like, it's just you. So you know how in it you are. You agree. It's fine. It's a lot easier.
Yeah, and if Jack's with me, it's like, well, it's been a lot of fun, and I'm trying to get back to the fun of it.
Yeah.
And just, because if I'm if you were on like a bus, 200 and something days a year, which would be awesome at some point, maybe, but at the same time, you've got 15 people to pay, and you've got how many ever people taking percentages, and by the time you get home, I've come home from tours with the band and had to write checks that were just, after like looking at my credit card and hotels, I'm like, I'm gonna pay everybody this much for 15 days.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
Where does it all go?
That model is tough.
Yeah.
I respect anybody still doing it. I mean, it'll take a lot out of you.
Can you talk a little bit about the quarantine concert that you did? Was it one or?
Those were a blast. Yeah. There were two.
This is during 2020.
Yeah, the first one was at the Black Box Theater on Tybee. I'd never been there. Didn't even know it existed.
Yeah.
It's this tiny theater.
So this is cool. It's like this public service where I feel like, in New York also that like drama performers were just they were performing in their like apartments and like beaming it out just to like entertain people and keep their skills up and everything. So you guys were doing this.
I did do a virtual.
Really cool.
I have played New York virtually.
Okay.
Yes, because I met a guy that said, you want to play this, I can't even remember the name of the venue. I looked it up and I was like, I want to play there. So, but it's streamed through their site. So, but that was, and then I started doing them in here. and I'd have like an iPad, a phone, this camera, my other old computer's camera.
Yeah.
And it was just like the stress of it was, and then it got a little played out for me creatively, because it was more, I love playing in here, but it turned into a venue in here more so than the recording. It got kind of, it was good to get back to just recording in here.
It's like an amazing way just to like keep people's spirits up and still have a feeling of supporting the arts and
we did a
seeing
thing at the
performances.
park over here. There's a little dog park, and we take the dogs there and stuff. And there's I met a bass player, Vince, during that time, when the first time everybody got together after everything happened, and he played bass. So he brought his bass, and we had no idea what we were going to play, and we called it the Tybee Island Outlaw Quarantine Band or something. But everybody got together in the lawn chairs in the park, and we played, and it felt so good to get out of this room and like get the speakers out and go. Just the process of setting things up and checking live sound and just that whole part of it is it's ingrained in your
and the like community
process.
Aspect of it.
Yeah,
You're not used to just being alone in a room.
Yeah, it was really good for people.
So I think your most like recent endeavor is that you and your son have started playing together, and you kind of were focused on like Nirvana covers, right?
That was the first band that he like something
was
in a way.
Was it his idea to do that? Or your idea?
He just got into Nirvana, and I was like, whoa, this is awesome. And then Something in the Way was the first song he learned on a little parlor guitar like that. He's got a right-handed one, and I played in Charleston at Home Team Barbecue like February something 2023, and he came out and plugged in and played. That was his first singing and playing gig.
Yeah.
It was like a little over a year and a half ago. And from where he's come from there is just like the drumming and it's pretty unreal.
That's very cool.
It's unreal. It's like watching a little mini Dave Grohl back there just like killing it.
Yeah.
And it's loud. It's like I'm old. This is so loud.
You have all the drummers to be like emulating and learning from. That's very cool.
We've auditioned bass players, so a buddy of mine came over that I used to know from Tybee, and he doesn't play anymore, but that's his bass cabinet, and he left it with me. He's like, dude, I just got a set of storage. If you want do you need a bass cabinet?
Oh, yeah.
I was like, yeah, man.
So you're ready for like
810
bassist to come in here.
Right, yeah. And so he gave me this Fender Rhodes, a 1973 Fender Rhodes. He just like, just this is yours, man. Use it for some records. I was like, so we learned like Heart Shaped Box and 3 or 4 Nirvana songs in one night, and then Ford and Tierboff was in the band. He was going to call himself Ford Bible, and he came over, and we got like 20 songs down in a night.
Really?
And some Weezer, some Nirvana, and
I love that.
Ford, but he does addiction like help on a hotline or internet. Like for dire people looking to get to treatment, he's like that person that helps them. So he can't work on the weekends or can't play on the weekends. So, but that band was called Dive Bomb, and we were ready to take over the world.
That's cool.
And but Ford's kind of on. So right now it's just me and Jack.
How is it for you to like have to sing and scream like Kurt Cobain? Is it really challenging?
Well, the 4th record we did, In the Pines, or Where Did You Sleep Last Night, and that song, the last scream, I really wanted to like maybe even scream crazier than Kurt did on that last. And so we did like a harmonica mic and an SM7B, and Shane did something with the compressor. Shane Baldwin, he produced that record. And so he told me like Pantera used this technique with a certain compressor, and we got that.
You got a crazy scream.
You can hear my vocal cords just completely go out at the end of it.
We could play a little bit of that.
At the end, that last scream would be fun to put.
All night blue.
it's blood curling, and these days a lot of that stuff's tuned down a half step, so that helps me. If it were standard, I don't know if I could sing.
Get that high.
We played Over Yonder last Saturday, and we had a good time. But doing like Drain You, and it's like, wow, man, it's
the
it's
really
up there.
screamy
For
ones.
me, it's, I mean, my range is not. I don't even know what it is, but it's not that.
Yeah. Okay, so random question. Do you consider yourself to be more extroverted or introverted?
Extroverted, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, depending on if it's after a set, I need a minute. But after that, after I kind of decompress.
Yeah. If you were doing karaoke, what do you have a song?
Roadhouse Blues. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I used to do that at Bay Street Blues, as a matter of fact. Do the whole lay down on the floor and...
That was a whole performance.
It was the whole... I had the leather pants that I lived in when I moved here. God, those things. And then, yeah, it was like trying to recreate the scene from The Doors. Like, it was the whole...
Okay.
Like, you know, the blue bus and just scream. Like, not really follow the song as much. And just...
you go artistic
the
with
finery,
it.
Yeah, just fall off the stage, make people like, man, that guy's...
Conceptual.
hammered. Yeah, it was performance art.
Okay. And then finally, do you have any... what's something you wish maybe you'd known when you were first starting out as a musician?
Where to find more left-handed guitars? I guess, yeah.
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 Fair.
Where do these mysterious things exist?
I guess we didn't have the benefit of the internet back then. Now everything is Googleable.
You just drive around or call.
Yeah.
And
just be like word of mouth or something.
Yeah. Do you
right?
have any left-handed guitars? Nope. And I have guitars that are supposed to have dots. Like that logo is still right-handed.
Okay.
The dots are on this one, but a lot of them, the dots are here. So if it's left-handed, you've got to you've got to have this filled in.
So it's like not even fully created to be left-handed.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing I love about this guitar is you can just like throw it on the golf cart and throw it on a boat or wherever. And it's tuned to like I got a vinyl of Nick Drake in Texas. And so this is almost like a dulcimer almost, because these are tuned in unison. And I keep this around like when I don't feel like playing like your normal chords at a gig.
Yeah.
Open tunings are just fantastic, because you can, without having to do this, you can do. This is one of the cheapest guitars I have, and it's fantastic. I love it.
That's so cool. I love it.
But that guitar in the corner over there, that was the Trainwrecks guitar, and that one was a situation where I'll turn this lamp on, but it's got a hole right there in it, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, I got that after the Guild kind of went out of commission when the Trainwrecks first started, so I keep that retired over there. Just, that's what heavy drinking will definitely carve out a guitar like that. But I love guitars. I do love guitars.
I didn't know you could just gouge out of a guitar like that.
Well, that's a Breedlove made in Canada and or Oregon, and it's cedar, the top, and it's retired.
Will you post photos? So when the show comes out, and I'll post about it on Facebook. It'd be kind of cool to include like a photo of some of your guitars.
Yeah. If you want to take any
that'd be cool.
Photos of anything. Or...
Well, I want to kind of coming to the end. I want to thank you so much for your time. It was so interesting.
Yeah,
is there anything? So I'll post, a link to your Instagram. Is that kind of where you keep people posted of your shows?
Yeah, at Jason Bible Music.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to leave us with at the end, or something that we can look forward to from you?
Well, the new record will be coming out next year.
Yeah.
And probably in the fall, September. And I'm 2 songs in. I gotta help.
It's your deep concept album.
The book and the chapters and working with Dave.
Yeah.
That's on the horizon. I'm recording Little Gracie Tuesday. They're a local band. They're doing their third EP here.
Oh, cool.
And then Monday I'm recording a buddy of mine, John Patrick Bunger. And he writes some of the best stuff.
And then you're continuing to play both yourself and with your son. Okay, so once a month you're at the warehouse?
Wednesdays solo, and then happy hours me and Jack do. He can legally be in there till 8, so we'll do 3 to 7. And I want to get him out of there by about 7:30. Like, let's go. It gets pretty wild. In there
it is very
sometimes.
cheap beer. I'm sure it gets real crowded.
Yeah. I mean, it's fun. I mean, the sound is pretty cool in there too, because it's just the straight kind of old storage building.
Well, thank you, Jason. It's been really fun hearing your stories. Yeah, it's been really nice to meet you face to face.
Dealing with my ramblings.
It's great. I love it. Thank you.
Well, I love music, and I love that you're doing what you're doing, because that's great for.
Thank you.
For art.
Like I'm archiving our local creative scene, basically.
Yeah, that's good. And long after we're gone, maybe somebody will find one of these phones and be like, what is this? Yeah. Oh, there's recordings on it?
It'll be in a literal time capsule buried outside of a high school or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of wild with that, because you wonder about archiving stuff, like what's going to happen if something happened to me on the way to a gig, driving or something next week or something. And I don't want somebody to have to listen to some of that stuff. Like, no one should have to archive that. Let's just archive it with, like, mute on, you know? Yeah. That guy's voice is so terrible. But I think the music scene here does a lot of good things for the community and for everybody else, you know? And people aren't so competitive that they actually, stick together.
Yeah, that's amazing.
They don't badmouth other bands.
Yeah.
Like, you rarely hear that.
I feel like that with the visual artists, too.
Yeah. But yeah, I quit drinking 15 years ago now, and that's probably been the best. I wouldn't be here probably without that decision.
You've had a lot of longevity here as a musician downtown, so I'm sure that's
there's stories.
A lot for you.
There's some stories. I was at a gig the other day, and the cook, he's like, "Man, I know you, man." And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I was the cook at Bernie's," and I was like, "Oh." And he's like, "I know Jason Bible now. I know." It's like inciting Jägermeister shots, and one time the bartender cut me off, and these soldiers, we all got very angry at the bartender. Just stuff like that. I just
You're like, oh dear, what memories does this person have of me?
Like the time I fell off the stage and got tangled in the like 7:30 at night with like families everywhere. Like literally fell over the railing, tangled up in mic cables. And Eric was there, and he saved my life, probably from.
Untangled you.
He untangled my soul. That's the next album. Untangle my soul.
All right, you heard it here first.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This has been Jason Bible, and we'll post a link to your Spotify and photos of these things, and a link to your Instagram. And can't wait to see you out around town.
Yeah, look forward to it.
Let's go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.